Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Red Devils TV. Now, this is the evening show, so if you haven't tuned out into the afternoon show, make sure you watch that after this one. But thank you for everyone that's tuning in tonight, and let's just get right into the video. So, obviously, recent reports in today that Erik Ten Hag and Manchester United are not going to renew our loanee contract, which is quite interesting in my opinion, because obviously Wout Weghorst, Marcel Sabitzer, Jack Butland, and obviously we've already had Martin Dubravka. But these players have played all right for us. Martin Dubravka and Jack Butland, you can erase them, and they are kind of irrelevant in this situation. But Weghorst and Marcel Sabitzer are interesting ones because they're both very liked in the fan base, and I personally feel like they have done okay. But for me, I don't think they have done enough, so I can understand why Erik Ten Hag and the club aren't going to proceed by giving them permanent deals. So let's just look at what's happened and over today's report. So today's report is that on what's it called now? That it was TalkSport. That TalkSport is saying that Everton are interested in signing Wout Weghorst on a permanent deal in the summer transfer window, with Burnley putting Weghorst on the summer transfer list, and Manchester United are not going to renew the contract, as well as with let me just get the words, that Sabitzer is not being also signed by Manchester United, and Thomas Tuchel for Bayern Munich doesn't seem as a viable option in progressing the club forward. So let's review these, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. But anyway, let's just get right into the video. So as we've just said, we'll talk about Wout Weghorst first, because I think he's a more discussive type player and a decent player we can actually talk about. So anyway, with Wout Weghorst, obviously he was brought in January for Manchester United. Obviously went through Cristiano Ronaldo situation when he left, and Wout Weghorst was brought in to be a backup striker. And then obviously Anthony Martial, built like a poppadom, got injured. So then our backup striker had to play 23 games in a row straight to actually and be our main striker. And then obviously Erik Ten Hag, the fans were getting impatient with Wout Weghorst, and eventually he was forced his way out of the squad. Now, Wout Weghorst was never a world-class striker. He was brought in to be a replacement. He was brought in to be that guy that you bring on, and it was pretty much a rotation player almost. But with Martial, built like a poppadom, he constantly got injured. Wout Weghorst had to do a job that he was not assigned to do, and that's where I feel like he's been given a lot of criticism that he hasn't deserved. Anyway, Simon, nice seeing the comments. Yeah, the jury's out on a few players, Dan. A lot's going to happen in this transfer window for United. Absolutely. And he also says that Weghorst ain't going to cut the mustard for me. I agree with you. Weghorst was never a world-class player. Weghorst is definitely not Manchester United level and what Manchester United need. But Weghorst did a job. And Weghorst also is very underrated and underappreciated in my opinion. People forget that it was Wout Weghorst who scored the brace against Argentina in the World Cup, sending them to extra time and sending them to penalties. Wout Weghorst came off the bench and scored them 2 goals and almost ended Messi's World Cup dreams. But obviously, Argentina went on to win the World Cup. I personally think it was a rigged World Cup, but that doesn't matter. It's all in the past. But anyway, Wout Weghorst obviously came to Manchester United in January, and he has scored in a few good games, and he's also been a part of some very big games for Manchester United this season. And the biggest part for me is him getting the assist to make it 2-0 in the Carabao Cup final against Newcastle. People forget that Wout Weghorst got the assist for Marcus Rashford in that game. And for me, I personally feel like that Wout Weghorst has done a job. If you didn't know who Wout Weghorst was before he came to the club, obviously you learn that he wasn't a very good player. But at the end of the day, you know what you're buying. Like if I buy Aldi's chocolate, which is like non-branded, just a bit crap, do you know what I mean, for less money, and instead of buying a Freddo or something, or Maltesers or Minstrels or something like that, I know I'm going to get the lower quality. So, because I'm buying the cheaper option. And actually what United fans should have realised when we signed Wout Weghorst, he wasn't going to be this diamond in the rough who's going to be an absolute breakout superstar. I turned around and said when we first signed Wout Weghorst that anything over 5 goals is a success. Obviously, he didn't get 5 goals, but in total, he did get 5 goal contributions. So for me, that's close enough. But anyway, Simon, what are you saying? Saying it would be ironic if he moves on and shines. It would be, but again, this what shows what the amount of pressure it is to play for Manchester United. Manchester United are a team that's built on history, built on the whole world watches you when you play for Manchester United and you put on a Manchester United shirt. And some players can hack it and some players can't. And I think Wout Weghorst is one of them players, not down to his determination or his spirit or his work mentality, but down to his quality. And that's where Wout Weghorst doesn't succeed at Manchester United for me. He also says needs must, and Simon also says you get what you pay for. That's exactly what I mean. And mindset. That's exactly what I mean with Wout Weghorst. But with Wout Weghorst, he's obviously a very appreciative player, and I feel like that he's well respected. And I think that people thought that he was going to, because he's 6'6", so many people thought he was going to be this massive aerial threat, and he'd be perfect for Manchester United. We found that's not the case. Wout Weghorst couldn't hit water on the boat. We've been over this. You know all the analogies that I've said and when I've described our Wout Weghorst. He's an average player who isn't Manchester United quality, but has come into the club, done a job that he needs to do, and help us get top three and win the Carabao Cup. Whether you want to admit that or not, whether you want to say Weghorst is a part of that journey or not, I personally feel like he is. And I feel like every single player who's played a part in this season, whether it's just a one-off game or whether they've played over 30 games for us this season, they've all played a part when they need to. And Wout Weghorst definitely fits that criteria. He's almost played every single game since joining in January. And I personally feel like that's quite a bit of success. He's definitely got his name out there. And whether he does go to a lower team in the Premier League or the Championship or finds himself another team in Europe, he'll definitely be on certain teams' interest. And one of them teams is Everton. Now, Everton, for me, is kind of a strange one because Sean Dyche obviously really wants a tall, physical striker, which is obviously appreciated. Sean Dyche is obviously dealing with Calvert-Lewin, and who's also constantly injured. So that's kind of been one of the reasons why Everton were in a relegation battle, and also because of Frank Lampard absolutely screwing up Everton earlier in the season. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been injured constantly throughout the season. And Wout Weghorst is a massive admirer from Sean Dyche. And if you remember or not, Sean Dyche was on that bought Wout Weghorst for Burnley. So that's what it says. So when Sean Dyche was at Burnley, he bought Wout Weghorst. So it's clear that Chris Wood and Wout Weghorst, the ex-Burnley strikers, suit Sean Dyche's system, and Sean Dyche is a manager of Everton, and I personally feel like he would definitely suit Everton. He's that type of level of player, I think. So I look forward to seeing that, and if Wout Weghorst does go to move on, I wish him all the best because I feel like his work ethic is absolutely incredible, and no United fan or any football fan can deny that Wout Weghorst is a very decent player on his day. Simon also saying, I think he would suit Everton. You're not the only one, Paul. I definitely think he'd suit Everton as well. Maybe a West Ham as well, but they've got Antonio, Scamacca. So I feel like much lower teams who play a lot more defensive and build towards their striker almost. But I think that's where Wout Weghorst would shine, in my opinion. Second of all, Marcel Sabitzer. Now, Marcel Sabitzer is an interesting one. Obviously, he was a Bayern Munich player, and Bayern Munich set a price in the deal that they were not going to make a buy clause option. It was going to be a straight loan spell, and then if Manchester United want to purchase him, they will have first dibs. But a lot's happened for Bayern Munich since. They sacked Nagelsmann, and they've brought in Thomas Tuchel. And Thomas Tuchel has been absolutely ruthless. He's selling the likes of Sadio Mane. He's called out certain players, and he's also said that Marcel Sabitzer is not a part of his plans. So if Manchester United aren't going to progress through the deal, which they've said they're not now, and Thomas Tuchel doesn't want him, he's definitely going to be leaving Manchester United and leaving Bayern Munich. Now, I personally feel like with Sabitzer, very decent player on his day, but again, massively injury prone. He's had 4 injuries since being at Manchester United. That's only been in the summer. Now, obviously, both these loan deals with Manchester United have been short term, obviously from January to the end of the season. But the transfer window doesn't open until the 14th of June. And it closes, I believe, on the 1st of September. So there's a lot of work to be done for Manchester United, and I feel like that Erik Ten Hag needs to get his plan and his priority sorted, whether he's definitely not keeping these players, because these are the players that we can't be undecisive on throughout this summer, because we definitely need to be straight to the point. Are we keeping you? Yes or no? Who's going? Who's staying? Who's coming in? that's how we need to run our business. We need to be straight to the point. We need to be dynamic and go right at it. But I think Sabitzer, a decent player. But again, with Manchester United, he came in, did a job, and we weren't even going for Sabitzer. It was only because Eriksen got injured in the FA Cup and was out for 2 months is why we actually signed Sabitzer on a loan deal. We weren't going to get Sabitzer. So I can understand why Erik Ten Hag doesn't want to keep Sabitzer. Sabitzer was almost a stopgap just for the time being while Eriksen came back for injury. And Eriksen kind of never recovered from that injury, in my opinion. I don't think that he was ever brilliant before his injury, like a Diogo Dalot before his injury, Alessandro Martinez over Varane. But Eriksen definitely declined throughout the season, and Sabitzer, I kind of would have put in favour over him, but Sabitzer hasn't really done enough for me either. Statistically, his goals and assists aren't up to scratch. Yes, he does all right, but defensive duels, he's not a very dominant midfielder, and he's not the quality Manchester United need. Plus, here's another comparison, that if Man United want to compete with Bayern Munich, Man City, Real Madrid, then if a team like Bayern Munich are offloading players like Sabitzer, we shouldn't then be signing them. We shouldn't be signing their deadwood, because their deadwood is obviously a lot higher quality than our deadwood. We've got Harry Maguire, Axel Tuanzebe, Brandon Williams. That's our deadwood. But their deadwood's the likes of, obviously, Choupo-Moting. They've got the likes of, obviously, Marcel Sabitzer. Like, they've got good players who are going, who they want to get rid of. That's their version of deadwood. So their quality is a bit higher than Man United's. And you can see why teams like Man United come in for these players, because they are an upgrade on what we currently have. But they're not a permanent solution to longevity issues, in my opinion. But with Sabitzer, it's clear that Thomas Tuchel doesn't want him and isn't a part of his plans. You've got players like Ryan Gravenburch, Leon Goretzka over Sabitzer. So Sabitzer, I do think, can get himself in a team that is in Europe, maybe a Conference League, maybe a Europa League at a push. But as a Champions League club, I don't think Sabitzer has that much quality, in my opinion. So I'm quite glad we're not going ahead with these signings. I do like both players, but for me, for the kind of audition that they had, they didn't get the part. And for me, I just feel like they've kind of failed to impress. That's just my opinion. Anyway, moving on to the stories. Obviously, it's very inconsistent at the moment with Mason Mount with the stories. But Mason Mount deal almost done. That's what the reports are being said. There's been reports today that James Milner is going to Brighton. There's reports that McAllister from Brighton is also going to Liverpool. So it's kind of like a swap deal almost, but it's not at the same time. So it's both. So it's two teams that have agreed to trade for different players, but the players swap is not a part of the deal almost. They're separate deals, but two teams have agreed to kind of buy each other's players almost. So it's going to be the domino effect now. So we're going to see a lot of teams in the Premier League now linked with moves, transfers and all that stuff. And hopefully Manchester United are one of them teams. And the most favourable player that United are going to sign first is Mason Mount. Now, it's been reported that Manchester United have agreed terms with Mason Mount nearly 7 days ago. So that's obviously that wages and bonuses and all that stuff is fine. Is squad role. There's been talks that they've had multiple phone calls and FaceTime videos with Erik Ten Hag, Mason Mount and his team and management team. So it's looking probable that Mason Mount is going to become a Manchester United player. Now, for me, I do really like Mason Mount, but he wouldn't be a part of my dream team for next season. And he would definitely be brought in as a rotation option. If Erik Ten Hag does want to start him, I kind of fear for that, because what happens to Bruno, or do we bring him in as a winger? I really don't know with Mason Mount. So for me, I personally feel like it needs to be addressed that what position and what role is Mason Mount going to have at Manchester United. And then see what Simon says. Simon says that, 4 spells out isn't good. And then saying, papered over the cracks. Saying, well said, but needs must. And he also says, Mason Mount is quality in my opinion. Whether he fits in is a different story. Exactly, and that's been Man United's issue. Like, I had a dream the other night, Martin Luther King, if you know, you know. But I had a dream, right, the other night, that Paul Pogba was still at Manchester United, and we had a midfield three of Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, and we won the league. And obviously, I know Paul Pogba is gone from Manchester United, and I didn't like Paul Pogba. I wanted him to go because the wages, his work ethic wasn't good enough. And on his day, he was absolutely world class. But Paul Pogba also never had world-class players around him. We got the best out of Paul Pogba probably in the 2016-2017 season when we brought Zlatan Ibrahimovic in. And you had an ego player like Paul Pogba, and they were absolutely brilliant together. But with Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro, I personally feel like that would have been a dominant front three. A midfield three. So I feel like we need a type of midfielder like that, like a Paul Pogba. A tall, strong, good on the ball, skillful playmaker. That's exactly what we need in this Erik Ten Hag system. And Mason Mount doesn't fit that. Mason Mount fits there, very good on the ball, good with his feet, very good at playmaking, but isn't tall, isn't strong, isn't aggressive in the tackle, and isn't very defensive aware. So for me, I personally feel like Simon saying Paul Pogba is a mercenary. If that's your opinion, pal. But with Mason Mount, it really just depends on what Erik Ten Hag's plan is for him. And if you was to ask me, you know what, we'll do a bit of a segment, right? We'll go a bit off topic, but we'll talk about what is my dream team for Manchester United next season. So goalkeeper, I am replacing David De Gea. I am going to go for a Diogo Costa or a Gregor Kobel. I do want a world-class goalkeeper that is modern day, that has proved that they can do it in multiple leagues, Champions Leagues, internationally. I would definitely like that, but I would say Diogo Costa is probably the more favourable one out of them. He's very good on the ball. He's very good at shot stopping. Yes, his World Cup wasn't the best, but Portugal weren't the best either. So for me, I definitely feel like Diogo Costa would be a good goalkeeper for Manchester United. The back line stays the same. I would definitely keep Wan-Bissaka, Diogo Dalot, Varane and Martinez, and Luke Shaw as the left back. Casemiro keeps his position in the holding midfielder role. And then my midfield two would also consist of Bruno Fernandes, who keeps his place. And I would definitely like a Declan Rice or a Caicedo. A strong, good on the ball midfielder, kind of like described with Paul Pogba, who's very strong, doesn't back out of the challenge, and is good on the ball. Now, I was thinking of Ugart, but he's almost guaranteed to go PSG now. He was reported he was going to go Chelsea, but Marco Asensio and Ugart are now been hijacked by PSG, and they are going to go to PSG almost. So they've ruined their careers. PSG is just not a good team. They're just very rich, and they are crap. They win the French league every single year, but they don't develop players well, and they just bring in players that are promising, but they never do anything with him because they never win the Champions League. But who knows? Messi's leaving PSG. Neymar apparently wants to leave PSG. So Mbappe is the only still shining star at PSG. You know, it's kind of weird about how PSG is run, in my opinion. But anyway, back to the Dream 11. So definitely Caicedo or Declan Rice in that role. I would like Ugart as well. I think he's a very more defensive minded, and that would allow someone like Casemiro to drive a lot more forward. And as we've seen, Casemiro does like to go forward. He does have an eye for goal. He does like to go for a header and does take a shot, whether he's booting it in the back of the net or whether he's doing a somersault and beating Bournemouth. But and my front three would probably consist of Antony or Sancho on the right-hand side, Garnacho and Rashford on the left, and Harry Kane through the middle. And then maybe a backup striker like a Holgund or an Evan Ferguson, someone that's an understudy to the striker or even a Mason Greenwood. Like Mason Greenwood has reported that he might be coming back to Manchester United. So I'd take Mason Greenwood. I mean, I personally feel like that with the Mason Greenwood situation, I don't know whether I'd take him back or not. I know I've just said I would, but that's only if he's guaranteed to be innocent. And I personally feel like Mason Greenwood and the girl in question, who the reports and the videos and the trial was over, they kind of need to do an interview, I think, or a TV show where they discuss what actually happened, because I feel like that would clear a lot of fans' minds, and my mind included. So I'm looking for. I would take Mason Greenwood back. I do think that he would be amazing with Erik Ten Hag, but it's just that, has he lost the talent because he's been out of football for nearly 1.5 years now? So it's all about what Erik Ten Hag's plan is for him if we do sign Mason Greenwood. But if not, I would definitely sign Harry Kane or a Victor Osimhen or Goncalo Ramos, or Dusan Vlahovic. The striking option is the main one for me, and we have to get one of them 4 strikers, and then definitely one of the 2 young strikers that are upcoming and can be an understudy to the guaranteed goal scoring striker, so that when they do leave or whether they retire, then they can definitely be ready to take the next step and be the main guy. Simon saying that Wan-Bissaka will shine next season. I bloody hope so, because Wan-Bissaka for me is improving more and more and more. He's better than Diogo Dalot, and I feel like Wan-Bissaka can be a liability at times on the ball, but defensively, one-on-one tackles, Wan-Bissaka is absolutely sensational. So I would definitely keep Wan-Bissaka. And Simon also saying Declan Rice, break the bank for him. I agree, and I personally don't know why City won't go in for a Declan Rice, because for me, Declan Rice is much better than Kelvin Phillips. He's definitely a brilliant understudy to Rodri. I mean, Rodri is only, 27, 28? So maybe you can even do a midfield too. Maybe when Gundogan goes, if he doesn't sign a new contract, Declan Rice could be that player for City that could be driving more forward. So for me, I definitely feel like that with Man City, they should sign players like that, and I would definitely sign him as a Manchester United player. But anyway, that's been the video. We'll quickly talk a bit more about Mason Mount, actually. With Mason Mount, I personally feel like with Mason, he is a decent player. I just look forward to seeing what Erik Ten Hag's plan is for him. But yeah, that's pretty much been the video. Obviously, we streamed earlier this afternoon at 3 p.m. Talking about the Man United review of the season. So everyone go check that out if you haven't already. Reading this last comment from Simon saying, yeah, Greenwood would get grief. Can he handle it? That's the only question. But I look forward to seeing what the future holds for Manchester United. Make sure you stay tuned to Red Devils TV. Obviously, the transfer window opens in exactly 9 days. So we'll be doing a lot of transfer rumours, transfer talks. We'll try and get some journalists onto the channel and interview them and see what the biggest news is. So we'll try and work on that, because obviously Red Devils TV is all about progressing and getting bigger and better as a community. So honestly, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you, Simon, for all your comments. It's much appreciated as always. Remember, like the stream, subscribe if you're new, and thank you for watching. And everyone, I hope you